Hi, I'm Nabila Rahman from United News of Bangladesh, also known as UNB. And today we are having a very special session with one of the co-founders of Pathao, Ahmed Fahad. And he's also the VP of Product at Pathao. So welcome aboard. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Pathao before we start our session. It's a multinational now transportation technology company where they're running operations in both Nepal and Bangladesh. It's got ride sharing, parcel, food delivery and on-demand transport services in 3 major cities in Dhaka, Sylhet and Chittagong. It currently has a fleet of about over 50,000 bikes and the company is valued of over $100 million. Wow. Pathao follows a one app for all model, providing all of their services through one app. So Fahad, thank you for joining us and giving us your precious time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So we are here in today's session. We want to learn not only about the success of Pathao. Hopefully everybody knows about Pathao by now, but we also want to talk about the challenges and failures of your other initiatives before Pathao and how you got where you are today, so we can inspire the budding entrepreneurs, the budding startups, the struggling startups, even the successful startups, or anybody with ideas on how they can basically take the failures and challenges as a stepping stone and can basically move ahead, move beyond.
Sure.
So that's why we wanted to talk to you. So let's talk about your background, your passion, your interest, your initiatives before Pathao and key challenges and how you got here.
Sure. My background is basically I studied Scholastica during high school and then IBA for college, and I'm still in college, and we can get to that. But before Pathao, we actually started and failed a few other initiatives, and during that time we actually learned a bunch of things which we kind of later took on to Pathao and kind of applied it. All of those failures were instrumental, I'd say, now that looking back. But more than that, I think I started my first company back when I was 14 or something, and so from that time till this, doing things again and again kind of really helped.
How did you start a company at 14?
Right, good question. So when I was 14, we used to have a really good knack for football, and so 5 of my school friends back at Scholastica, we basically wanted to organize sports tournaments to actually make money out of by organizing these football tournaments. It was basically aimed to do 2 things. A, provide আমাদের ager মানুষজনকে a platform to come and have a recreational way of spending their time.
Hey, football entertainment, is it are we talking about physical or digital?
Physical football.
Oh, I was thinking
but we then got to digital.
Okay,
we then got to digital. So প্রথমে we went to physical football tournaments. We organized it and hundreds of people came. It was we started with 4 or 5 teams, but then it went out to 32.
And it was within Scholastica, the teams?
No, it was all over Dhaka scene. It was English medium schools, Bangla medium school, all these schools, and they came together.
Where would we play?
We would play in many grounds Gulshan Youth Club, Abohani Mat and Lal Matia. We organized it all across.
And you would sell tickets? How would you make money?
We would make money off entry fees.
Yeah,
so every team would have to give entry fees, and there would be prize monies, and all of that accounting would also have to be done by us. So that is kind of how it started. And we also later did gaming and a lot of things, and this was all when we were in the 8th grade.
This is which year?
This is 2012-ish.
Okay.
Right.
So okay, not that far off.
No, it wasn't that far off, and that is kind of how we started. And during this time we did a bunch of cool things which now as I look back, I think those are skills that we kind of learned. One was around pitching to sponsors. So we literally went to all of these big multinational companies or even local ones, and we went there and we were like, hey, we're organizing this and this, and you have all of these young people who are going to be there. Do you want to sponsor it? And obviously we'd have to do a lot more than that. We'd have to prepare these decks and all of that, and we kind of got decent check sizes $5,000 or something like that.
$5,000?
That was our highest one, and yeah. So
how do you even go, who are these sponsors?
So it would usually be friends and family.
So how do you even knock on doors? How do you call?
Right.
If young people wanted to do something, let's say they wanted to call some big multinational, who do they call? Like the receptionist, the CEO?
So what worked for us really is friends and family. So
You're the network?
Exactly. So a lot of people at Scholastica know a lot of other people. Their families were involved in these kind of things, and that's kind of how we got our foot through the door and got into the room, so to speak. And after that, it was a matter of like pitching. We actually talked to a lot of people, and only like 1 or 2% actually worked. That kind of seems very similar to now when we're talking to VCs.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that kind of.
So, but how did you learn to do these pitch decks? Because they don't teach these in school.
Right.
How do you learn what to present,
Right.
what to say, what to present, how to present, how to create these PowerPoint slides? How do you learn that?
So I think it was a culmination of a lot of research and Googling, really.
On like creating decks.
Creating decks, but also like just sheerly Googling how to actually like propose value to other people, that this is the value you will get for your money.
That's pretty impressive, being 14 years old, to think, that far ahead. Because I remember when I was 14, I was probably, I don't know, riding bikes or going to a music lesson.
Right. All of those are noble pursuits as well. What really worked for us is that, the first few ones we went, we were absolute messes. Like, it didn't work. But slowly, we kind of noticed that all of these guys, they're asking similar questions.
So yeah, there's
how many people are going to be there?
So how many pitches did you do? Like 20, 30, 50?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Something like 20.
And you just got better and better and better.
Yeah. So the first one was always the worst. The second was one also pretty bad, but slowly there was patterns of asking the same set of questions, and we were like, okay, cool. So let's just go with these questions pre-hand and just do it. That's kind of how we started. And after that, I think I spent a bunch of time freelancing online.
What kind of freelance work?
So this was like when I actually developed some hard skills. So I did web design, made landing pages for people.
And you learned this how?
Google.
Wow.
So Google has been pretty instrumental in all of this.
So what were you learning in school?
Physics, chemistry, and all of that.
And I'm sure it helped in certain ways. Yeah.
School stuff?
Of course.
Yeah,
the foundation has to be there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But you also had an interest. Were a lot of kids in your class at that time frame doing what you were doing similar, or were you like a special case?
So I think a lot of like the 5 friends that I actually started with this with, they were definitely of similar mindsets.
And they were all in the same class.
Yeah.
Same school, yeah.
Yep. That definitely like resonated with all of us, that we wanted to do something that would like be fun but also be different. So yeah, those people were definitely similar to me, but I think freelancing stuff, I also have some friends who did that, but the combination of first doing this and then the freelancing stuff and then subsequently whatever I went on to do, that I don't think was a commonality, basically.
That was your individual journey.
Basically.
Yeah. And then, so what are the lessons learned here? I mean, what were your failures?
Right. So I think there are like a lot. I think the first one was around like purely the things we started with before all of this. We started 4 things before this. One was around like carpooling. So carpooling at a time, we did this in 2015, and there was no ride-sharing culture at the time, but we wanted to do carpooling. And this was like, now that I look back at it, does not make sense.
I think we should also tell the viewers what carpooling concept is, because people may not know what carpooling is.
So carpooling is basically you go from A to B, so let's say Dhanmondi to North-South, and it's a single car with a single rider, but you share the ride with many, many people. It's different from ride-sharing, where you only get the car for yourself.
Got it. So amader in this traffic jam and all, this carpooling concept would be, will work really well. Karon amra dekhi je garite ekta driver ba ekta passenger thake. But if 2-3 people from that neighborhood or from that university or from that office can 3-4 jon ekta garite as opposed to 3 or 4 different vehicles, get into the ride together, it would reduce traffic dramatically. Where did you get
Absolutely. And it kind of made sense on the numbers as well. So according to the World Bank, when we were researching this, in 2014 they published a paper. Long story short, basically 5% of like transportation that people do in Dhaka city is by cars, like the 5% of people move by cars. Compared to the traffic jam, the causality of traffic jams, 52% of the traffic jam comes from private cars. And that speaks to one person, one car, that whole problem.
Just a lot of waste also environmentally.
Yeah, and they also quantified that waste. They quantified that waste in 3.2 million working hours are being wasted
By sitting on traffic, and
sitting on traffic. And this is not like in a month. This is per day.
That's crazy.
3.2 million working hours. These were like big numbers that we kind of looked at and were like, okay, traffic is like by far the biggest problem that we have on a city level. How do we solve it?
So talk about what didn't work with carpooling.
Right, carpooling didn't work at the time, because like a lot of people didn't trust each other. They didn't want to get into a single car with strangers and all of that. Also, it was like not flexible. We had a fixed timetable when a car would stand at a fixed place in Dhanmondi and then leave at exactly, let's say, 10 a.m. And then it would arrive at exactly 12 p.m. and then it would leave again. And so we had this very strict thing. It was not on demand. Whereas everything we did later on was on demand, because that's something people really care about.
Again, explain what on demand means for our viewers.
On demand means at a tap of a button, you want a food, a ride, or anything of that sort, it comes to you then and there.
Yeah, within a few minutes,
compared to like having fixed time.
Which is kind of like the bus stop. You stand in the bus stop for the bus to come. Like your carpooling was the same. You stand in front of the car, you probably will be, it has to be based on customer centricity, the need of the people at their time, not at the company's time, which is, I think, a good learning.
Absolutely.
So whatever we try to do, customer centricity is key, and we should always put customers first and their needs first before our startups or organizations, because that's the only way we can succeed, I feel also.
Absolutely. That's a very good way of putting it. One other thing we actually learned was around unit economics. Basically, running that car from A to B did not make sense for us monetarily, given the number of seats that we would have to occupy at each trip, as well as like the car could only do 2 or 3 trips a day because of the traffic, and that would by no means like justify the spend.
The monetization.
And that model just fundamentally was flawed. So that kind of gave like a lot of perspective on thinking first and like thinking through before we actually do stuff. So carpooling, definitely that experiment. We call these experiments.
Of course. And how long did you do this experiment?
It was around 2 months.
Okay, so it was very fast. You learned, you kind of you gave up and you started something else.
Absolutely.
So you know, it's also important to know when to give up and when not to. Because some people are very, they own the idea and they really try to do it, which is very admirable, but at the same time can be also foolish if you don't change the, or tweak it around. I mean, I still think carpooling idea is a great idea, as long I feel like it's on demand. But it's going to be harder on demand, because if you and I are sharing a car, we may not need it at the same time, but we are going to the same destination.
Absolutely.
So there will be challenges. And if it can be solved, you got it. And it's probably going to be cheaper than, Pathao rides, because you're sharing with 3 people, right?
So carpooling is very interesting. Like, I would love to like think about how it would work in dynamics today compared to 3 years ago, but it's very safe to say that 3 years ago we were very early into doing something like this. And so timing really matters when doing things, like timing. And we basically, I mean, if we were to put this into like textbook terms, we didn't find product market fit, right, at the time. And product market fit is like the biggest thing that there is, and timing plays a big part in that. And that was a key lesson from that as well. Basically.
Okay, great.